Madeline Meshere Mugo, who fondly we called Jury, was born in Kerugoya District Hospital in Kirinyaga District on December 12, 1942. She was the firstborn of Senior Chief Richard Karoga Githai and Mwalimu Grace Njeri Githai. Meshere was sister to Muringo Kiereine and Judy Muthoni Gilmore, the late Joyce Muthoni Githai, Duncan Mutugi Githai, Winnie Wamboi Marekia, and late Rose Wanjiro Washira, the late David Githai, Patrick Jero Githai, and Nancy Wangari Githai. The late Meshere Githai, the late Meshere Mugo, was the mother of two daughters, Mombi, who is here with us today, and the late Jerry Koi, whom she fondly referred to as her comrades and her friends. Meshere was baptized in her infant, and her godparents were Samuel Mokuba and Jesse Juku Mokuba. These were the parents of our retired Archbishop David Gitari. In her early days, Meshere went to Baricho Primary School, where she was for 4 years till she did her common entrance. And then she went to Kangaroo High School. This was during the years of emergency in Kenya and was one of the most violent periods in her country, in history. The Kenya Land and Freedom Army, popularly known as the Mau Mau, had intensified resistance against the colonial occupation and brutality. And at the time, this is the time Meshere was in Embu Girls High School, which was located at the heart of this war. Between 1957 and 1960, Meshere went to Alliance High School, where again she found herself thrust in the middle of the world become the education desegregation project in Kenya. Meshere did very well at Alliance, where she was the head girl in this school. She passed very well and was selected as the first and the only African child to proceed to Limuru Girls High School. That was an all-white girls' high school. She again in this school excelled and did very well. Again, she emerged at the top as top student at Limuru Girls High School. And after her A-levels, she was given a scholarship to go to Oxford University, but opted instead to join Makerere University in Uganda in 1969. Again at Makerere, Meshere she did very well, and she was a student of the late Professor John Beatty, Okot Bitek, and David Cook, among others. It was here where the same of her earliest poems, some of her earliest poems were broadcast on the BBC. Later, she became the first female editor of Penpoint, a literary journal in the English department, graduating from one of the most intellectual sites in East Africa at the time. First, for education, was that Micere was not satisfied to finish her education in Makerere. She left for Canada to pursue her higher education, and at the University of Brunswick, where she was introduced to African American and Caribbean writings and the growing culture of letters in Black diaspora. She again excelled and obtained her doctorate within a very short time. Micere returned to Kenya, where she again was the first East African to hold a PhD in literature. She became the first chief examiner of English and literature for the East African Literature Council, Examinations Council, where she trained and supervised examiners and assessed ministries of education in assisting the ministries of education, the Ministry of Education in Africanizing the education curricula. For Micere, the biggest national educational project between the two. Thank you. That's much better. Thank you very much. For Micere, the biggest national educational projects between 1973 and 1982 included overhauling the then colonial secondary school curricula, promoting drama and theater in schools and colleges, and applying individual and collective research to practical community needs. It is during this time Micere traveled around Kenya, interviewing some of the Mau Mau women fighters, including Field Marshal Muthoni wa Kirima and Mukami Kimathi. She was convinced that the post-colonial era was erasing the contributions of women. History, she argued, was incomplete and inaccurate if it erased the narratives of women in the liberation struggle. She also, at the time of passing, we know that she was writing a book for this lady, Field Marshal Muthoni wa Kirima. In 1978, Micere was elected as the first female dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Nairobi. That same year, President Jomo Kenyatta died and was succeeded by his vice president then, Daniel Arap Moi. Now, the new government quickly turned a nightmare for her. Micere and several other of her colleagues, as well as those involved in students' politics, were in big trouble. She became a target of constant harassment as the increasingly oppressive policies of the regime disrupted teaching at the University of Nairobi. Due to previous detentions and torture, Micere managed to escape the country with her two young daughters, Mobi, 7 years old, and the Jerry, 5 years old, to begin an order's life in exile Life in exile began in Canton, New York, where Michere taught at the St. Lawrence University. But even at that time, she involved herself in community activities. She taught creative writing courses and Kiswahili in one of the maximum security prisons. She always had in her mind that she wanted to travel around the United States, speaking and raising awareness to multiple audiences, including the United States Congress. At the school where Mombi and Jerry were, they were the only Black children. They became targets for bullying and racist attacks. Michere felt alienated, geographically, historically, and spiritually. She then decided to return to Africa. She applied and was offered a position as chair and professor of English at the University of Zambia. But soon after, she was denied entry. And this was a result of a conversation which our President Moi and his counterpart, President Kaunda, had, that Michere was undesirable to go to Zambia. She did not give up. Soon after, through the intervention of the late Sally Mugabe, the Ghanaian-born wife of President Robert Mugabe, and who was also Michere's close friend, she was hired as an associate professor in English department in the University of Zimbabwe, where she lived from 1984 to 1992. To her very great disappointment during this time and surprise, her passport, her Kenyan passport, was confiscated by the Kenya government. But thanks to President Mugabe, Michere was allowed to become a Zimbabwean citizen until 2010, when then again she regained her Kenyan citizenship. Michere returned to North America as a visiting professor at the Africana Studies and Research Center at Cornell University in 1992, and later joined the Department of African American Studies at Syracuse University in 1993, where she served for 22 years until her retirement as emeritus professor in 2015. Her nurturing spirit and indomitable will touched communities and institutions worldwide, resulting in numerous prestigious awards. At Syracuse University, Michere's contributions was as invaluable as they were diverse, with her becoming the first Black professor to be awarded the prestigious Laura J. and L. Douglas Meredith Professor for teaching excellence. She received over 20 awards from students' organizations across the campus for her leadership and human rights activities. As a community leader in Syracuse, Michere co-founded the Pan-African Community of Central New York in 1994. And in the year 2003, she went on to establish the United Women of Africa organization. In 2013, Michere received the Elder of the Burning Spear, EBS award, by our former President Uhuru Kenyatta, the government of Kenya. In 2022, Again, Meshere was the recipient of Lifetime Achievement Award from the Human Rights Defenders, the Defenders Coalition, and the Embassy of Sweden in Kenya, which I believe is a very high award. There are some among numerous awards Meshere achieved in her life, and it will be difficult to name each one of them. The union structure theory, which Meshere developed, captures a worldwide where the existence of the individual, the collective group, and the world around them are inextricably intertwined and exist as a shared humanity. This was the core of the Utu and Ubuntu philosophy, which she so dearly embodied, and which transcended parochialism, classism, patriarchy, sexism, heterosexualism, and all other confining isms. Meshere Githai-Mugo was a warrior of life. Her final battle with multiple myeloma was a very long and intense. She very heroically battled the cancer for 16 years without complaining, and not many people knew, although she shared what she was suffering from with anybody who cared to listen. This is the battle she finally lost on June 30th, 2023, when she breathed her last at 11:30 a.m. at Cruz Hospital in Syracuse, New York, in the presence of her beloved daughter Mumbi and myself. Following Meshere's transition, the city of Syracuse declared the 29th of July that it will be Meshere Githai-Mugo Day, which was signed by the mayor of Syracuse in honor of Meshere's life and legacy. This is a very high award, and as a family, appreciative of it. Now, may Meshere's soul rest in eternal peace until we meet again. Thank you.